Welcome, everyone, to the ComedySportz Podcast with your host, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Today's special guest puts the divine in divination. It's Steph Diva DeWaegeneer.
Hello, my wonderful loyal listeners. Wonderful to have you back for yet another episode of the ComedySportz Podcast. I'm Christine Rollo Capriolo, and today I am joined by a powerhouse woman. I'm so excited to talk to another female in comedy and learn a little bit more from Steph DeWaegeneer. Hi, Steph.
Hello. Thank you so much for having me here.
Thank you for being here. I'm really excited to talk to you today. You are Miss Houston at ComedySportz, so we're going to get to know your journey into improv.
Yes.
But first, I like to start with, where were you born and raised?
So I was born in Detroit and lived in Mount Clemens, but we moved pretty quickly. When I was about 6, we headed west and moved to Tucson in the pursuit of a better life, get out of the automotive industry, that type of a thing.
Okay.
But we moved a lot when I was a kid. I lived in Tucson for a couple years, then we moved to Modesto, California, and then we lived in Cambridge Springs, Pennsylvania. And a lot of that was my dad either being transferred or pursuing.
What did he do?
He worked when we moved to Tucson, it was for Hughes Aircraft, and then he got a job with the Carnation Can Company, and that's what moved us to making cans for Carnation Milk to California, and then they transferred us to Pennsylvania, and then my dad went back to working for a division of Hughes down in Houston. So when I was about 13, we moved to Houston.
And then that's kind of been your home base.
And was there for school, high school, went to college in Huntsville, which is about 90 minutes north of Houston. So I was there for a long time doing theater, started doing ComedySportz there. Yeah.
Okay. Did you study theater in college?
I did. I'm a theater major from Sam Houston State University. Go Bearcats.
Go Bearcats! Woo! Did you, as a kid, did you always want to go into acting?
100%.
You did. That was your goal.
I was the little 2-year-old that memorized the Pledge of Allegiance and was writing plays when I was 6 years old, and my mom was making costumes out of paper bags. And so, yes, I always had the acting bug.
That was the thing.
There were other things along the way. I wanted to be an anthropologist, a fashion designer, different things, but always wanted to act. I grew up on Carol Burnett, and the Donnie and Marie show, and all sorts of variety shows, Sonny and Cher. So I really had the bug to act, and I loved comedy.
Yes, comedy was it. So when you majored in theater, was it called, or what was it? Okay, did you get to do comedy, or was it a lot of?
So it's so funny. There really wasn't a formal improv program, and I dabbled, and I say dabbled, very briefly in high school in improv. I don't know if they have anything like this here in Wisconsin, but in Texas, they had forensics tournaments speech and drama tournaments.
Yeah.
I would compete in humorous, where you would deliver a humorous monologue, or duet acting. Well, if you didn't advance, they would have little extra events you could sign up for. So I would always sign up for the improv event.
Oh, okay.
And I would usually do pretty well.
Yeah.
But never had any formal improv training until I started doing ComedySportz. I just always did traditional theater.
Okay. And then after college, what did you do? Were you already introduced to ComedySportz at that point, or were you?
So I was doing regular theater, doing professional theater in Houston.
Okay.
And also working odd jobs, retail jobs and things like that. And some of my friends from college, from Sam Houston, I heard were doing this sports comedy thing. And at the time I was managing a costume shop that was part of a small chain called Costume World. We could do a whole podcast about Costume World.
Don't get me started.
About the wackadoodle lady that started Costume World. But I was managing Costume World, which was fun, and I heard my friends were doing this sports comedy thing, and I was like, well, I don't really like sports, but I'll go see it to support them. First show I saw, so ComedySportz Houston was started by Diana Delaney, who was a ComedySportz Milwaukee player.
Right.
She wanted to bring comedy. This is when the great expansion of ComedySportz teams was happening.
Yes.
So she wanted to bring ComedySportz to Texas, and they had just started. They were performing in the back room of a nice restaurant, in Houston, and I went and saw it and was like, oh, this is what I want to do.
Yeah.
This is the thing I've been looking for that's been missing from my life. So I was there every week watching shows, making friends with the players.
Nice.
And then about 6 months after they had started, she had an audition, and I didn't make it. Diana loves me to tell the story how I didn't make it.
You didn't get it.
But she only took like 3 or 4 people at that audition. Okay. And then about another 6 months later, she had another audition and took 12 people, and I got in on that one.
What'd you have to do at the auditions? Do you remember?
It was typical sort of improv where we're going to run you through some games.
Yeah.
We're going to play hitchhiker. We're going to play, just things to see your personality, see how kind of quick-witted you are, see if you're a selfish jerk or are you supportive of other people.
Right.
So
what did you do in the 6 months between those auditions? Were you doing workshops?
I was doing theater.
Okay.
We didn't even have classes at the time then.
Okay.
I think I taught one of our first classes that we ever offered.
Okay, so you were doing theater and just
I was working primarily with a group called Main Street Theater, so I was doing Working and Midsummer Night's Dream and doing that.
So what do you think you did different? And don't, not because she picked 3 at first and then 12, but what did you do different that you think she saw the second time around?
I don't know if it was just me seeing more comedy sports shows because I was still going to see the shows a lot, so maybe I picked up something.
Yeah.
Or maybe she thought, I should have taken her that first time.
Should have. She didn't sleep for 6 months. She felt terrible. She told me so. Right. So then you started playing it was about 1991 in Houston?
Yeah, we were still doing shows at the River Cafe, and we also had a gig we had started at a place called the Bel Air Theater, which now doesn't exist, but it was an old movie theater that had like a bar in the lobby. And somehow that summer we were booked to do shows in the lobby bar. Terrible environment for comedy sports. It was sort of away from the general public, but you could see everybody walking in and out to go to the movies. It was a weird spot. I saw the same 10 minutes of Silence of the Lambs that summer.
over and
over. Because the little alcove we were in to like change clothes and put our bags was looked over onto a screening. And the same part where Buffalo Bill tucks himself. It's ingrained in my brain.
Well, he just did a hand gesture.
Yeah. So I've seen that so many times over and over that summer. But yeah, July of 91 was when I did my first match.
What was it about comedy sports when you saw it with your friends that you were like, this is it? What drew you in?
I loved just the spontaneity of it, the energy of it. I loved how the audience was so involved with it. And I was trying to remember, I even was trying to look this up last week. I swear when I was 9 or 10 years old living in Arizona, I remember there being some kind of a short form improv show being on TV. In the back of my mind, I always thought it was the Groundlings, and it's not. So I don't know. It may have been some sort of Second City something. I looked all over the internet last weekend, and nobody remembers it. It's not anything that I could find, but I swear I remember seeing some kind of short form improv on TV where they were taking suggestions and doing stuff. And I just loved that whole idea of it. And I've gotten super lazy as an actress now because to go through like a 4 or 5 week rehearsal now,
to memorize lines.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, I don't know about you, but the older I get, the less my brain can retain things.
And I also am a theater director. So when I was in college, my emphasis was acting and directing.
Oh, okay.
And I've directed a few shows in Houston and Chicago. I definitely enjoy that, love directing. But yeah, I'm trying to think of the last time I did traditional theater. It's been a long time.
It's been a long time. Improv is definitely your favorite over that.
Yeah.
So then you were for the first time, you were in Houston, how long? 6, 7 years?
So I was in Houston so I started playing in 91 and I moved in December of 97 to Chicago. And at that point, Houston was doing shows at a restaurant called Treebeards, which was downtown, and they were only open for lunch. But they decided on the weekends, on Friday and Saturday, they were going to experiment with being open for dinner, and they were a 2-story building. So we had the whole upstairs.
Oh, nice. And
it was really cool because people would come in, get their dinner, and it was sort of a Cajun, Louisiana-influenced cafeteria-style restaurant. Okay. And the food was awesome. And they had multiple locations around town. But people would get their food, they'd bring it up. They had a full bar upstairs. It was a really nice setup. I remember Dick coming, and Dick Chudnow coming through, and instead of getting dinner, Dick got like 5 pieces of pie. He got like every dessert.
That sounds like my choice, too.
And I'm telling you, that was such a great life lesson because I was like, eat dessert. Get 5 desserts.
Do it. That's good.
Yeah.
Dick Chudnow.
Dick also came down one time when we were, you know how it is with people, anybody who's been in any kind of an improv group, you're always looking for a home to do your shows. And we also had booked a place called Paul's All American Seafood that was downtown, and they had this big back room, and we thought, this is going to be great. We knew we were in trouble the second weekend when we had to send our box office person to go buy toilet paper. We should have known that was the first sign that Paul's was close, and then very next weekend so we were only ever there for 2 or 3 weekends. But I remember Dick coming down at that point too,
and bringing toilet paper with him from Milwaukee.
Right.
So why did you move to Chicago from Houston?
I feel like that was the thing you were supposed to do. But even before I started doing improv, my theater friends from Sam Houston, we had talked about moving to Chicago to do theater. That was sort of always the plan. We're going to move to Chicago. We're going to move to Chicago and do theater and Steppenwolf and, and The Goodman. And so I said, well, I'm going to work. I'm going to save a little money and then I'm going to go. Well, 7 years went by and one of my friends said, are you ever going to move to Chicago?
What's your deal?
Like all you talk about is moving to Chicago. You're going to do it.
Yeah.
And I thought, I guess I should probably do it. So I sucked it up.
You did it.
Moved to Chicago, loaded up my truck. I got to Chicago with literally $50 in my pocket.
Oh my gosh.
Moved into my apartment, turned in the moving truck, sent my friend Chris back on a plane. My dad bought him a plane ticket because he drove up with me. And
okay.
Sent him back to Houston and thought, I got to get a job. So I went out and got a job the next day and working at an employment, like a temporary employment placement agency, which I had a little experience in. And worked for, I swear, the human embodiment of Jabba the Hutt.
What?
And
what? Oh, wait, go
this
back to
couple that ran this employment agency that I got a job at, their office was adjacent to the Palmer House Hilton Hotel downtown, which is a super posh hotel. Yeah, well, the Palmer House.
Yeah.
But he was like, if Jabba the Hutt was a human, it was this man. Yeah, it was really interesting. And they were the weirdest. They were so nice and so generous, but so old school. Like they would make people go to other office buildings and write down all the names of the buildings that were on the directory and then get the yellow pages out and cold call them. Like this was some old school Glengarry Glen Ross, like I need the leads type of thing. Yeah, I didn't last there very long. I went and got another job at another placement agency that worked in finance and worked with, like, at the time, the Big Six financial. So that's how I ended up at ComedySportz full time.
In Chicago. Mm-hmm. Okay, so tell us about that. So you went Houston, you sucked it up, you did the move, you sent your friend back on a plane, you got a job with Jabba the Hutt, and then how did you get to ComedySportz Chicago?
So I already knew a lot of those guys from Championship and stuff like that. So I was super excited. I took a class in Chicago because at the time that was sort of their thing. We want you to take a class. Right. We'll evaluate you during your class performance, and then we'll decide if we're going to invite you into the pro team.
Right.
That was how it worked for me.
Sure.
We didn't really, I don't remember us having auditions. Mm-hmm. I feel like people got pulled from classes.
Right.
And at the time I was working at this financial professional placement company, and I was taking the bus one morning at 7:30 a.m. down Michigan Avenue, actually Lakeshore Drive. And I remember thinking, Lord, why am I here? I've been here 6 months. Like, just give me a sign. Why am I here? And I got fired that morning. I walked into the office, the boss was like, I'd like to see you, and I got fired. And I was like, okay. And I went to ComedySportz practice that night, and they said, we have an opening for a sales position. And I was like, thank you for the sign. I guess I don't need to get hit with a 2x4. So I got that job doing group sales and selling workshops and things like that. Okay. And at the time, ComedySportz was officing out of a little 2-bedroom apartment across the street from the theater we were in. And then, I mean, that was the beginning of doing improv full-time in Chicago.
Full-time. So sales, you're saying you were also like getting remotes and workshops.
So there was another girl at the time doing that named Juliet Curry. And then she eventually left and moved out to LA. She and her husband moved out, or boyfriend at the time, now husband, moved out to LA. And so I moved up to that position. Okay. And then that was sort of my domain for the whole rest of the time that I was there in Chicago.
And now you didn't just do ComedySportz in Chicago. You also got involved with Second City and the IO. Tell me about that.
Sure. I think I did a very typical sort of, I'm going to move to Chicago, track. I signed up for the Conservatory at Second City and went through the Conservatory and did my show, which was great, and met great people and had awesome instructors. Yeah. Michael Gelman and Martin DeMott, and just, it was such a great experience. And writing, because, in ComedySportz, it's there, it's gone. Poof, it's gone. Right. But in Second City, you're kind of reworking material, which is great. Went through the whole program at IO, was on a team at Improv Olympic or IO. That was really good. I'm still friends with some of those people that I was on my team with, and I love doing long form. And again, got to see so many great performers. I will say that I probably did not 100% launch myself into the full improv lifestyle. Maybe because I was a little older than some people when they first moved there, because I was already in my late 20s.
Okay.
Maybe just because I really loved ComedySportz and that was my first love. So that was, I wasn't waiting to be discovered to go to Saturday Night Live.
Okay, yeah.
I wasn't like so hungry. But yeah, I did those and worked with some other groups and produced and directed some shows and things like that.
Tell me the three, when we talk about ComedySportz, Second City, and IO. Tell me about what each one offers that's different from the other group.
Well, I think a lot of people do look to IO or Second City as being that path to fame. So people who really want that path to fame, they feel, and rightfully so, that is where a lot of people have been discovered and pulled from. I do think that each one offers something different, not only just something different for the improviser, but I think also for the audience. I think one of the things that IO and Second City really can't match ComedySportz in is the audience members always, they're so involved.
Yeah.
They're such a part of it. They're so happy when they're leaving. They're high-fiving people. And it is something they can bring their whole family to.
Yeah.
And that experience, even to this day when I ref, I enjoy the show so much. I laugh with the audience. You know, I just really love that interactive aspect of it. And the fact that it's always different.
So you were saying Second City, there is a lot of script.
Second City is scripted, so it's much more like Saturday Night Live for the uninitiated, you know, for somebody who's not an improviser. They use the improv to develop those scripted bits, the scripted parts. But that's also where a lot of characters that people love from Saturday Night Live or from movies, they were developed as initially part of a sketch at Second City. But in Second City wraps up their shows at night with an improv set. Like they'll get done with the actual main show. And they'll take a little break and they'll come back and do some improv. But that improv is also a tool for them to workshop some sketches that they're trying.
Right.
And then I think just the education at IO and the teachers and learning to do the Herald, which is a long form format, it just stretches such a different part of your brain.
Yeah.
And I think it teaches really great storytelling. And I think in ComedySportz, even though we're doing short little 3-4 minute scenes, I always try to look at it as we're extracting 3 or 4 minutes out of a day.
Yeah.
As opposed to packing a day in 3 or 4 minutes.
Right. So you're just getting a little excerpt of that day.
Right.
Talk about the Herald. That comes up quite a bit in this podcast, and I don't know if we've ever fully explained it. Talk about...
I don't know if I'm the one to do it.
But that's how I feel, too. I'm like, I know what it is, but...
Well, I made the biggest faux pas. One of my first improv Olympic classes, Craig Kakowski, who I adore. I love Craig Kakowski. People would know him from Drunk History. Craig's a great teacher, great improviser, and we were... I think this was my level 2 class at IO. We were going to actually start learning the Herald now. So we were beyond kind of the basic improv. And the Herald typically opens with some type of what they call a group game.
Okay.
Well, if you think about a group game in ComedySportz, that's a head-to-head game.
Right.
So in my brain, that's what I thought a group game was. And nobody stepped up to do anything. So I stepped forward like, all right, ladies and gentlemen, we're going to play the game of story or whatever I said. Right. And Craig's like, no. That's not a group game.
No, dear.
So a group game is an organic experience where we come together as a group and explore the suggestion that we just got. And so the format is really fun, but it's completely different than doing ComedySportz. You know, you're exploring this suggestion for 45 minutes or however long, an hour, whatever. And the Herald's more like a Seinfeld episode. You have all these 3 different storylines that somehow all magically tie together at the end.
Yeah, it's really fun.
But it's not as game.
Yeah.
It's not like a ComedySportz match.
Well, I think the closest is like Silent Tension.
Right.
Right, where you just don't get a suggestion. 2 players, you know, you go on stage and you just, what happens and what comes out of that silence.
And there's not, I think in ComedySportz, there's, I don't know if everybody feels this, but the pressure to be funny because it's quick and it's fast.
Right.
And where in the Herald, there's not necessarily a pressure to be funny. Maybe you're touching. Maybe it's, you know, maybe it's more, maybe it brings up a different emotion for people.
Yeah. Oh, I'm glad you're a good person to explain that. It's like, I've done it. I can see it. But yeah, words for me are hard. So then you were in Chicago, like 10 years. And then you're like, I'm done in Chicago. I'm going back to Houston.
Yeah, we were starting to have a little bit of a changing of management and things like that in Chicago. We had struggled a little bit with a space. We had been in a space for a while, and then we moved to a bigger space, and then our 900-year-old landlord died. And so we were in the old Steppenwolf theater.
Okay.
So one of my prized possessions is a picture of Gary Sinise and I, because we were in this 3-story building on Halstead and Diversey in Chicago. And it had been the old Steppenwolf Theater. Like, I remember we ripped up the stage one day and we found what we called the time capsule. It had like old Polaroid pictures and stuff. And so they were doing a documentary about the Steppenwolf. So Jeff Perry, Terry Kinney, and Gary Sinise all came with this PBS film crew.
Nice.
It was so great. I was like, please, Lord, if a picture of me ever turns out, make it be this one with me and Gary Sinise. And it did. It turned out great. But we moved out of there after the landlord died because they were going to knock the building down and build condos. And then we moved into sort of an infamous restaurant, Ann Sather's in Chicago.
Okay.
We moved in, they kind of redid that whole building. So about a year before I moved back to Houston was when we had made that final move to that location. And then ComedySportz Chicago has since moved out of there to another spot.
And then what was your reason for leaving? I mean, all the changes with ComedySportz, but what drew you back?
I felt like there were changes, and I felt like I'd done what I was going to do in Chicago.
Okay.
I felt like I'd sort of hit the wall in Chicago and wasn't really going to do anything different. So I thought, I think I'll go back to Houston, bring the knowledge I have, help try to grow Houston. At the time, I had 2 little nieces and nephews, so I wanted to see them, and I just thought it was time. It was time to go back. I love Chicago. I miss Chicago all the time.
Do you go back?
I do. I try to get back. I try to at least get back once a year.
Okay. So back in Houston, again, which you've been since about 2008?
Yes.
So now you've been there. Were you just welcomed back with open arms and jumped right back in?
Yes, their favorite thing to say is when Steph says, well, back in Chicago, we used to do this. So, they like to tease me. But I've been back in Chicago now longer than I was in Houston. So I guess I'm a Houston ComedySportz player at heart.
A Houston player at heart. That's awesome.
Yes.
What were the differences that you experienced playing in Houston and then playing in Chicago?
Well, so many people in Chicago, that is what they're there to do.
Improv.
And they're doing 3 shows on a Saturday night, and maybe they're at ComedySportz, and then they're running over to IO to do something, and then they're running over to the Annoyance to do a midnight show, or whatever it is. And in Houston, it's much more of a thing of, I have a full-time job. I do ComedySportz on Friday night or on weekends. But we had a really awesome high school league. We still have a really awesome high school league program, which in Chicago we could never quite get running. Yeah. But I will say Houston, their high school league program is great. And so that was really fun, and I jumped into that. Okay. And we teach classes. We have a fantastic improv school. So that was really nice. But yeah, I think the biggest difference is there's not really a lot of people full-time making their living as an improviser in Houston.
Okay. So it's kind of like when you hear about people going to LA.
Right.
Like living in a town where everybody's trying to make it.
Yeah.
So Houston doesn't have that pressure of that.
Right.
It's a little more easy to make. Okay. All right. And I want to jump away from ComedySportz for a second because I am fascinated by this. You are the reigning Miss Plus America Lifetime VII.
Yes.
And you won in 2009 Miss Plus America.
Yes.
And I really want to hear about this.
So I actually missed championship in Milwaukee in 2009 because I was competing in the Miss Plus America pageant.
Okay.
The Miss Plus America pageant is a national pageant for women size 14 and larger.
Okay.
I guess the best thing to say is it doesn't promote being overweight. It doesn't promote being out of shape. What it does is it gives women who are size 14 and larger a platform for things that they believe in, for things that they want to promote, and not to have to compete against more straight-sized, people. And it was founded by a fantastic woman named Melissa Stamper, who she would compete in regular pageants, and they would say, wow, you're great, you're talent, you're fantastic. But, she was overweight. And so she decided to start that pageant, and it was great. I competed. It just so happened the year I competed, there was a film crew there from Nat Geo TV filming for an episode of a TV show.
Oh, wow.
So that was really fun. And I got to use a lot of my improv skills when I competed.
Yeah, how so? How did improv tie into that? How did it help you?
So in the Miss Plus America pageant at the time I competed, you were evaluated on your gown, just like think about Miss America. You were evaluated on your gown. You were evaluated on your photogenic appearance.
Right.
You were, instead of bathing suit, everybody always asks, was there a bathing suit? No, there was not a bathing suit. We had what we called elegant pantwear, which was like a fancy cocktail pants outfit.
Pantwear, okay.
Yes. And then interview. A panel, you would walk into a room with a bunch of judges and you'd sit there for 10 minutes and interview. Well, I knew nobody could beat me in interview and nobody could beat me if I got to the finals. Nobody would be able to beat me in the fishbowl question, where you pull a question out of the fishbowl and have to extemporaneously answer off the top of your head, because I knew I had improv on my back.
Right.
And so
because you can think on your feet. That was easy.
100%.
Yes.
Because when I competed in Texas, my fishbowl question was, what was it? It was a question about, it had something to do with checks. I can't remember. It was something about money now. The question escapes me, but I knew I answered it and had it. And it was great and had a funny, quippy answer. And then in the national pageant, my fishbowl question was, who's the most important person in the world and why? Because those fishbowl questions could be anything. They could be cultural events. They could be something like that. Who's the most important person in the world and why? And I knew most people would say, oh, my mom, or God, big ups to God. Or whatever. God. And I said, me. I'm the most important person in the world, because only I have the power to make a difference. Only I have this. Answer the question. I turned around and walked off, and mic drop. Like, I knew.
Yeah, you did, girl.
I knew I had it.
I love it. Did you get to witness other women do the fishbowl thing, or was it you? Just 100%. You in the room?
Because and ever since, after winning and coming back as a former queen, I would get tapped to MC either preliminaries, or I've MC'd the finals many, many times, and it's actually one of my favorite things to watch, because you will see a girl who is gorgeous and has the perfect dress and the right thing.
She can't do that.
She'll go down in flames, and it's not funny. I shouldn't say.
No, but I mean it can tell you that improv has really helped in other parts of your life.
It really shows the personality of the person.
Yeah. I don't want to get into the funniness of watching some women answer questions, but Miss Plus Size America talks a lot about body positivity, and I want to hear how having that experience has helped you being on stage as a woman. And I guess I should start by saying, did you ever notice it was harder as a woman being on stage or doing improv? Were you ever like the only woman in a bunch of guys? Or?
Oh, sure. But I will say the fact that ComedySportz Houston was founded by a woman, we always had a really well-balanced team. So it never felt like a boys' club or anything like that. Good. And even in Chicago, we always had such awesome women performers. So, and I've never been one of those people that was like, I can't do this until my pants are size whatever. That never stopped me, because I've always been tall. I've always been big. And so I just was super comfortable with who I was. Not everybody's like that. I get that not everybody is like that.
Right.
And I recently have lost 100 pounds.
What?
And so...
Wow, congratulations.
I'd like to work this into this podcast. I recently lost 100 pounds.
I was like, I didn't expect you to say 100. I'm like, what?
It's kind of hard for me to believe, too, because it's like carrying a 10-year-old around. Like, I feel like I could have had a 10-year-old on my back.
How did you do that?
And I will be flat out honest with you. I started doing the Ozempic shot.
So Ozempic, those commercials.
Right. So prior to that, though, I had fallen. So I got divorced right before COVID.
Oh, okay.
Thank God my ex-husband moved out.
Thank God that guy.
2 weeks before the COVID shut down.
Oh my God, because you would have been trapped with
Right.
Pandemic, just wait a couple more weeks.
Right. So shortly after that, I had fallen in my house and fallen really bad in the kitchen and like banged up my knee and broke my toe, and learned which of my 2 dogs at the time was the ride or die dog and which one would have eaten my head had I passed out. But that motivated me to be, all right, I cannot be the divorced lady with the broken hip. So I started going to Pilates and doing Pilates, and I love Pilates and blah, 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 Pilates. Yeah. And then I also got really into K-pop. So hang in here with me.
Okay.
I really got into K-pop around COVID as well. And finally was super excited to go see BTS at SoFi Stadium in LA. Okay. And that wore me out so bad. And I thought...
Just dancing while you're watching the concert.
Walking from the parking lot to I was like... Yeah. I said, okay, if I'm going to be in this, if I'm going to be in this fandom, if I think someday I'm going to Seoul, South Korea to like do stuff. I got to get in shape.
Yeah.
And so I'm 57.
Okay.
So I just decided to get in shape, take it seriously. My doctor had been sort of asking me if I was interested in trying the semaglutides, which is the Ozempic or Mounjaro. Jim Gaffigan, I just saw him recently, and he does a whole 10 minutes of Exact about Mounjaro. Any of these semaglutides that are these injectables that you do once a week, I'm telling you, they're game changers. So
they suppress your appetite, right?
They help balance your blood sugar.
Okay.
Definitely helps suppress your appetite. In my personal experience, it makes me not want to eat like a bunch of fried, greasy things.
Yeah.
I still do sometimes, but yeah, it really is a game changer. But all of those pieces, the Pilates and just kind of having this outlook of, I didn't want to be worn out in ComedySportz. I ref a lot in ComedySportz, and we have steps on our field, and I didn't want to be stepping up and down and falling or what, I wanted to still be an active player. And I didn't want to have to make compensation for, I can't do that, or, I can't kneel.
That is a huge accomplishment.
Yes.
Making those changes. I mean, having the wisdom to say, I need to make a change. And
it's little things too. Even just flying here today, flying to Milwaukee on Southwest, I was like, the seat, I'm comfortable. I didn't need a seatbelt extender.
Yeah.
There's nothing more embarrassing than being on a flight and saying, excuse me, can I get a seatbelt extender? I was on a flight one time. I fly Southwest all the time.
Okay.
Southwest, I hope you're listening. And I was on an American flight for some reason, and I was like, excuse me, can I get a seatbelt extender? And she's like, what? Can I get a seatbelt? What? And the lady next to me goes, she needs a seatbelt extender. So I used to carry my own with me,
Yeah.
But it's so great. It's nice.
Is that Ozempic a lifetime thing now?
Probably, but
okay.
yeah.
I don't know.
I have heard stories that when people stop, they gain all the weight back, but I don't know. I guess people are still learning.
Yeah.
But also, this is a medication that's been out there for quite a while, for 10 years for people with diabetes. So it's not like some brand new medication that all of a sudden I'm going to start sprouting horns or something. And
let's hope not.
Right. So we'll see.
Okay. Well, I give you props for making those changes. And
thank you.
I need to start exercising more. I'm a teacher. So during the summer, I walk and I'm trying to be more active. But during the school year, I'm like, I feel like I don't have the time. Of course I have the time, but I don't. And I need to find an exercise that really makes me feel good, And
that's what I love about Pilates is I have to schedule it.
Yeah.
And have to be, I paid to be there. And if I miss the class, I'm wasting my money.
Right.
And it's nice. I do the reformer, like the actual machine. So there's only 12 people in the class. I really love it.
Nice. That's awesome. You're going to start teaching that one of these days.
Maybe someday.
That's fantastic. So I want to hear about your nickname, the Diva.
I think after listening to this podcast, I think it probably makes sense. Like, even when I first started playing, I remember it was super important. Like, I would make sure that my nails and my hair, and I'm maybe a little more low maintenance than I used to be. But yeah, I think I just always have had a big personality.
Okay.
I've never been one of a shrinking violet at all. So
did you find the contrast of wanting to do your nails and to be pretty, and then also wanting to be funny? Like, did they fight against each other at all?
No, I think because having grown up on 70s variety shows, you could be glamorous and be funny.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and now, I mean, when I started doing improv, there weren't that many women, on the team or out there to see. And now I feel like there are.
Right.
I mean, they're everywhere, right? I mean, so that's wonderful. And you clearly have created a path for many women to take. And that's really admirable.
Like I have hopefully influenced some improvisers. And even girls from other cities have come up to me at championship before and been just like, "Oh, I'm so glad you're here."
Yeah.
Or so I hope so.
Well, you have just a way of lighting up the room. And I just think it's contagious. And I don't know, I feel bubbly and excited to be talking to you about stuff. So the Diva, was it given to you by someone?
Gosh, I don't remember. Way back, they had tried Jeep, like Stephanie Jeep DeWaegeneer, but you don't pronounce my last name as DeWaegeneer, so Jeep DeWaegeneer didn't really, and plus it's not very fun. And in Chicago, we didn't really use nicknames. So I don't know, the Diva, I don't even remember how it even came about.
But it stuck.
It stuck.
And it's perfect.
Yeah.
I love it. Well, we're going to do a quick lightning round here in our end of the podcast here. Tell me your favorite ComedySportz game.
Styles replay.
Styles replay.
I would say 5 things, but probably everybody says that.
Everybody says 5 things.
Yeah, I love Styles replay.
What's your favorite style to replay in?
Shakespeare, or maybe like a film style. Like I love when we get a film style.
Okay. Are you good at accents?
Yes.
What is the...
Terrible at impressions. Good at accents.
Okay. Tell me if somebody comes to see ComedySportz Houston over and over and over again, and they see you a lot, and then they bring someone that's never been there, they're going to point at you and say, she's really good at what?
I'm really good at acronym panel. Like any kind of stand in the line game, like advice panel, good, bad, worst advice, any of those kind of games where we get questions from the audience and the characters answering. I get so in the zone in those games sometimes that I don't even hear what the people on the other side of me are saying sometimes.
What's your kryptonite then? What's the game that people are like, we're gonna play this, and you're like, oh my god.
It's something like Dick Van Dyke where you have to do impressions.
Yeah.
Because in my brain, I've got the voice, and it's gonna come out, and it never. I mean, my BFF Scott, who does ComedySportz in Houston, he loves to tell people about. We were playing dating game, and we got Sylvester Stallone. I was like, I'll do Stallone. That's an easy impression. Everybody can do Stallone. Nope,
I can't.
No. Terrible at impressions.
Oh, boy.
And we have some super talented people that can do celebrity voices in Houston. But
my husband can do an impression of anybody. It blows my mind. Anybody. And I'm like, how do you do that? He's kind of like, how do you not? Like you said, I can hear it in my head. I can hear their voice, and then I try to do it, and it just does not come out right. Same with accents when I'm in a show, and especially if you're all different accents. Now, if we're all doing a scene in Irish or whatever, I can pick up on it because I can listen to other people and I can mimic it. But if I'm Irish and you're Italian and Kyle is Cudahy, that's a little suburb of Milwaukee, I think I can get it. I'm doing Irish. But as soon as you start talking, then I adopt your accent. And you know what I mean? And I'm like, oh, crap, I forgot what I was. But you used
to play in Madison, right?
Long time ago. I started high school in Milwaukee, and then I played on the Madison team, and then I came back and played in Milwaukee.
I remember playing in Madison. I remember going, and I also remember we were here for championship in Milwaukee. Back when it used to always be in Milwaukee.
Right.
They grabbed some of us to go do a show in Racine.
Oh, Racine.
When Racine would perform, Racine performed in the back of a bowling alley. And I remember Glenn Packman, when he was in Hollywood, who is now in New York, I remember he and I came and we went to Fish Fry. We went for Fish Fry, and then we went to ComedySportz. And I'll never forget, we're back in this little room that Racine had. They brought 2 big pitchers of beer back there. I was like, well, hello, we're in Wisconsin. Like,
right. Did you ever play in Madison? Did you ever go there and do a show?
I remember playing in Madison above a Wendy's.
Sure. We had so many places above a Wendy's and Pizza Hut at a restaurant called Upstairs Downstairs. The Upstairs Downstairs Deli, we would take a board, and at the corner booth, we would put the board on top of the booth, and that became the stage.
Oh, that's hilarious. One of my regrets about being in Chicago for 10 years is that I did not go visit Indianapolis, Milwaukee, Detroit at the time more. Because they were so close, and I thought, I should have gone more.
Well, it's fascinating, me doing this podcast, getting to talk to people from all different cities and just hearing all the different things that people do in cities. Like, what is Houston known for? What, other cities are really musical, or what do you guys do?
Houston's probably known for the rodeo every February. And that's why when we host our regional event in February, the week before Chili Cook-Off, which is a big part of the rodeo. So we have the Improv Rodeo in February, and that's what we host. So Houston's known for the rodeo.
What is that though? What do you mean?
The rodeo?
Yeah. Like, what is that?
A rodeo is like where people like ride bulls.
Oh no, but I thought you meant like a show, like improv.
Improv rodeo is a regional ComedySportz championship event.
Okay,
so anybody can come to it.
Oh, I thought you somehow incorporated a rodeo into your show. I'm like, you have bulls on stage? Like, what?
No, that'd be great though. I need to talk to Samir and.
Like, why was that happening?
No. So that's how Seattle has their All-Star Weekend.
Right.
Whatever,
okay.
So, and Houston's known for barbecue, and Houston's known for the Houston Astros, which I'm a huge, Brewers fans. I'm a huge Astros fan.
Yeah. So. Okay. What's your favorite ice cream flavor?
Mint chocolate chip, which my favorite member of BTS, which is I'm BTS Army. So hey, all my K-pop fans out there. My favorite member of BTS is RM, and he hates mint chocolate chip ice cream, and I love mint chocolate chip ice cream.
So you're not meant to be then with that guy, right?
Well, also the fact that I'm 25 years older than him.
A little weird. Mint chip used to be my favorite. In Milwaukee, we have custard. As my dear listeners know, I'm addicted to Cop's custard. And while you're here, you have to get some.
Sounds good.
Mint chip used to be my favorite, but now Turtle Sundae has taken over. It's fantastic. Favorite Golden Girl?
Blanche.
Get out of here. Everybody's saying Blanche this season. Amazing. All right, Three's Company, the Ropers or Mr. Furley?
I'm going to say the Ropers.
Yeah.
I feel like the Ropers got a raw deal, too, because they took him off to do that. They should have never given them a spin-off.
They should have never taken him. I agree.
And they told Norman Fell, if this doesn't work, you can come back. And
they did. They only came back for one episode. He didn't want to go.
Don't get me wrong. Don Knotts, great. Love Andy Griffith. But I just never... I always thought Mr. Furley was too over the top.
Yeah. So then favorite Three's Company roommate, Chrissy, Cindy, or Terry?
Oh, wow. I like Terry. I do like Terry. But I think Janet was good. Janet was good, stable roommate the whole time.
But out of the three, that kind of changed.
Yeah. I mean, I think if you go back and knowing what what people know now about like Suzanne Summers, that she was pretty smart, actually.
Very smart, and was demanding equal pay. Right. There's nothing wrong with that.
Right.
Yeah.
I mean, Suzanne Summers, she's pretty iconic back then.
Yeah, for sure. And she was hilarious.
Yeah.
I mean, come on. Although I do go back and watch... And the Cindy episodes, which everyone just kind of blows off, actually were really funny. Not her, but the actual premise of the episode. All right, back to this. Favorite bird?
Peacock.
Oh.
I'll never forget, when COVID, we were working from home, and all of a sudden I looked out at my driveway, and there was a peacock in my driveway one day, and I thought, what? And he came by for like 2 weeks.
You have peacocks down there?
Yeah.
Like, we only have them at the zoo here. You have peacocks.
Yeah.
Oh, fantastic. All right, so I'm going to lay out some pieces of paper.
Okay.
And each paper has a different name of a comedy sports game.
Fun. Okay.
And I know games are called different things in different cities. So if you don't know it, just go ahead and put it back. You're going to take two.
Okay.
And I'd like you to tell me about the games and tell me which game you'd rather play in a show.
All right, so I picked dubbing and slow-mo. I probably would say slow-mo. And then if I was in slow-mo, I probably would want to be a commentator.
See, I like the slow-mo part, but I'm known for making crazy faces. Okay, so tell me about dubbing.
I feel like dubbing can be such a cluster sometimes, I guess it depends on what kind of dubbing it is. I would probably prefer like a cleaner dubbing where maybe one person's dubbing for the other two. We play 3-on-3.
Okay, yep.
And I know some cities play 4-on-4.
Yeah, we're 3-on-3 now, Milwaukee.
But there's all sorts of different kinds of dubbing. But I like a cleaner dubbing where like that person is dubbing for that person. But but it's not probably my favorite game. But one thing I'm known to say is something that Dick said a long time ago is the game you hate is the game you should play. So
that's smart.
So whenever someone goes, I hate that game, I go, Jake Chudnow says the game you hate is the game you should play.
That's right. It's the game you should play. All right, we're going to play some Would You Rather to end us off here.
Okay. I feel like I'm getting my tarot cards read.
I'm just going to pick two random cards here. Ready? Okay. Would you rather eat a stick of cotton candy entirely made from belly button lint or have to wash your face every day in a heavily populated bird bath?
I'll take the bird bath.
The bird bath.
Yeah.
You're going to risk the bird flu.
Because at least I could hold my breath and not ingest anything. And I just got a COVID vaccine, so maybe that would help. So I don't know.
So that's going to help you against those birds. Well, Steph, this has been really fun talking to you. I'm just really excited about your energy, and I just think Houston has a gem with you.
Aww.
And I just think it's been fantastic getting to know you here, and I really appreciate you coming in.
Thank you for having me.
You're welcome. Thank you, my wonderful listeners. The ComedySportz Podcast is produced and engineered by Kyle Hanneken. Our announcer is PJ Rockwell. Check us out on Facebook and follow us on Instagram. Comments and questions can be sent to the ComedySportz Podcast at gmail.com. Created and hosted by me, Christine Rollo Capriolo. Check you later.
The ComedySportz Podcast is an independent production made by CSz players. The views and opinions expressed by the podcast host and any guests are their own and do not represent the views and opinions of any CSz location or CSz Worldwide. Vocabulary used by the host and guests is not necessarily representative of the CSz brand.